Welcome to the Zul'Farrak in-depth dungeon guide for both Horde and Alliance. Zul'Farrak is an ancient troll city inhabited by the Sand Fury trolls. The entrance can be found in the northwestern corner of Teneris and is very easily accessed as there are not too many elites guarding it. Zul'Farrak is an excellent dungeon to acquire some awesome items, and for most players it will be where they acquire their first trinket, the fabled carrot on a stick, as well as their first epic, if they're lucky enough, that being Sultre's the Lasher. This dungeon has many puzzles, and even a secret boss, thus this guide will give you an overview on how to have a clean run. Just be careful as the mobs in this dungeon are much more difficult than previously encountered, and will require crowd control as well as quite a bit of area of effect damage. The ideal level range is 43 to 47, but you can enter as early as level 35. Just a quick disclaimer, the server that this was recorded on has the dungeon very poorly scripted. Thus, I will explain the fights how they were originally meant to be, as opposed to what's on screen. Our first, and only Horde quest, starts off from some hidden venom bottles in the troll city Hiriwatha in western hinterlands. These bottles send us to Apothecary Leiden in Terran Mill. Leiden will give us the follow-up, Undamaged Venom Sac, which will require a venom sac from any of the spiders in Shadra Allure back in the hinterlands. This quest item has a very low drop chance, so be patient. Upon returning to Leiden, we will receive Consult Master Gadrin. This quest sends us to Master Gadrin in Sen'jin Village in Durotar. Upon reaching Gadrin, he will give us the Spider God. This quest just requires us to read through a large stone tablet found in the eastern part of Zul'Farrak. Our first, and only Alliance quest, starts off from Griffin Master Talanax. Talanax can be found at the Airy Peak in Hinterlands and gives us the quest Witherbark Cages, which requires us to investigate 3 various cages in the troll villages of the central hinterlands. They can be found in each of the circles on this map. Upon returning to Talanax, we are given the Altar of Zul. This quest just requires us to explore the Altar of Zul. Be aware that there are elites up at the altar, so you will either need a group or a mount to outrun them. Finally, Talanax will give us the quest Thaddeus Grimshade, who sends us to Thaddeus Grimshade down in the Blasted Lands. When we finally arrive, we head to Netherguard Keep and go to the top of the tower where we can find Thaddeus. Thaddeus will give us Nekrum's Medallion, which will require us to collect a medallion from Nekrum Gutchewer, one of the mini-bosses within Zul'Farrak. Our first neutral quest starts at the Mirage Raceway from Wizzle Brass Bolts. Wizzle gives us Gahz'rilla, which requires us to kill the secret boss Gahz'rilla and collect his electrified scale. This quest gives us the fabled carrot on the stick, which increases mounted movement speed by a whopping 3%. I'll explain how to summon Gahz'rilla later in the video. Tabitha's task can be started in every major city aside from Darnassus, and can be picked up in each map's marked area respectively. This quest sends us to Tabitha in the central area of Duskwallow Marsh. Upon arriving to Tabitha, she gives us Tiara of the Deep, which just requires us to collect the Tiara of the Deep from Hydromancer Vilthena in Zul'Farrak. In Booty Bay, we can pick up Tran'rek from Krazek, which just sends us to Tran'rek and Gadgetzin. Tran'rek then gives us the follow-up Scarab Shells. This quest just requires us to collect 5 uncracked Scarab Shells from any of the non-elite Scarabs inside of Zul'Farrak. While we're in Gadgetzin, we can also pick up Divino-matic Rod from Chief Engineer Bilgewizzle. Bilgewizzle wants us to collect the Divino-matic Rod from Sergeant Bly, who can be found at the base of the Sacrificial Pyramid after the Gauntlet event. Our last quest that's found in Gadgetzin is Troll Temper from Trenton Lighthammer. This quest requires us to collect 20 Troll Tempers, dropped by any of the trolls within Zul'Farrak. Our final quest starts from Yakinya at the Steamweedle Port. Yakinya gives us Screecher Spirits, which sends us to Fairless to kill and collect 3 spirits from any of the Veil Screechers found within Central Fairless. Upon returning to Yakinya, he gives us the Prophecy of Mosh'aru, which asks us to collect the first Mosh'aru tablet from a named mob, Theka the Martyr, and the second tablet of Mosh'aru from Hydromancer Vilthena. I would recommend continuing this quest chain afterwards, as it leads to a very rewarding dungeon quest within the Sunken Temple. Now, to summon Gahz'rilla, the secret boss, we must first start off by killing Kiaga the Keeper at the top of the Altar of Zul in the hinterlands. You will need a fairly strong group for this, as she is a level 50 elite and is accompanied by another level 50 elite, as well as some adds. Upon killing Kiaga, loot her for her sacred mallet. Now that you have the mallet, you can head to the top of Jinta Allure. At the very top, at the sacrificial altar, we can click the sacred mallet to forge it into the mallet of Zul'Farrak. You will need at least a 5-man group for this, as the mobs here can, at times, be more difficult than what you fight in Zul'Farrak. You can also attempt to outrun your entire way up, but be prepared to die, a lot. Our first boss is Antisul. As mentioned earlier, this is one of the fights that is incorrectly scripted. Once you reach the entrance of his cave, the fight is supposed to immediately start. Antisul will proceed to summon a large group of basilisks. These should be killed off as quickly as possible, otherwise they'll make quick work of any squishy class. Antisul will also summon an elite basilisk, which needs to be taunted immediately and focused down, as it does quite a bit of damage. While this is going on, be on the lookout for totems that Antisul summons. He can summon an Earth Grab totem and a Healing totem, which should both be removed as quickly as possible to avoid their effects. Lastly, Antisul casts a heal. Interrupt this if possible, as it heals for quite a bit. If you can muster all of that, you'll be awarded with some excellent items, and if you're lucky, one of the swords used to craft Sultrays will drop. Before we start our next boss, Witch Doctor Zumra, we must clear out all of the graves in his boss area. If you don't, he will summon elites that will eventually overwhelm you during the boss fight. Once you're ready, approach Zumra. When you get to his chest, he will become hostile. Zumra himself is fairly easy. He casts Shadow Bolt and Shadow Bolt Volley, which don't do enough damage to really be worried about, but he does heal, so save your interrupt for that. Finally, Zumra drops a totem that summons skeletons. Kill this quickly as to minimize damage to your group. Before we can start our third boss, we must first head to the top of the sacrificial pyramid, kill the executioner, and free the group of Alliance and Horde at the top. Be warned that this will begin a gauntlet that summons 3 waves of trolls that will immediately run up the pyramid to fight you. Keep the prisoners you freed alive, or you will not be able to complete the rest of the dungeon. The third wave will summon Shadow Priest as is. The big difficulty with Saziz is that you must fight him, his assistant Nekrum, and some additional adds, but you will have the assistance of the prisoners you freed. Nekrum himself will cast Shadow Bolts, which can be ignored. He will occasionally fear in an area, but this is unavoidable. If you have a class with access to a short cooldown interrupt, have them sit on Saziz, as he will heal his minions, which will make the fight all the harder. Past all this fight is probably the easiest in the dungeon due to the prisoners assisting you. Our next boss, and technically our last boss, is Chief Ukar's Sandscalp and his assistant Ruzlu. To have the easiest time with this boss, I'd recommend an off-tank take Ruzlu while your group focuses him down, and the main tank holds Sandscalp to the side while this happens. Both Sandscalp and Ruzlu cleave, so keep them faced away from the group. While Ruzlu is fairly easy, make sure the person tanking him doesn't get too low as he can execute. Sandscalp himself will occasionally enrage, increasing his damage and attack speed by quite a bit. Pop a defensive when this happens, or he will burst you down. If you can keep up with the damage, this should be a relatively easy kill. Sandscalp drops the second part of the sword used to create Sultrays. If your group went ahead and crafted the mallet, you can fight the secret boss Gahz'rilla by hitting his gong. Gahz'rilla is by far the toughest fight in the dungeon, unless you utilize your surroundings. What you're supposed to do is fight him in the pool of water that he spawns out of, as he launches the entire party into the air every few seconds. But, if you move him under the archways surrounding this area, you will only have to deal with the damage this does, which is quite minimal. Gahz'rilla will also occasionally stun a party member for 10 seconds and do a bit of damage. If this happens to your tank, make sure you spot heal the person that picks up aggro. Lastly, Gahz'rilla shoots out icicles at random party members. These do quite a bit of damage and apply slow, but can't be avoided, so do your best to eat the damage and keep low health players healed up, just in case. Gahz'rilla is actually quite easy once you find out how to avoid his knockup. If you can't summon him, it's not too big of a deal as he doesn't drop the greatest of items. And that was it. I hope you enjoyed one of the more interesting dungeons of vanilla, and I wish you luck, as this one's a bit more difficult than what we've faced before. As always, thanks for watching and subscribing, and have a fantastic day.